All right, good afternoon, boys and girls. Doc Severson here with Ready, Set, Crypto, coming to you live from Westerville, Ohio. And on the other side of me, I have Mav. Take it
Guys,
away.
how's everybody doing? What's going on in crypto land today? It's pretty quiet, I think.
Fairly quiet. Yeah, we had a little bit of
Yeah.
a consolidation. Let's see, where's everybody coming in from today? We have first, second, third, fourth. All right. All right. Good to see you guys. We've had actually a hell of a week if you look at the overall performance of crypto. If you look at Bitcoin especially, we really are in, I'd say, at a 2 to 3 coin market again, and this is not unlike with that what we've been in really since April. We got a little pump in April with most of the top 10 of the crypto market, but since that point, Bitcoin and just a couple other ones are running away with things. Right now, we got Monero is keeping pace okay. We have Binance Coin is somewhat keeping pace, but the rest of them, especially if you're trading against Bitcoin in the denominator as the base currency, you've got problems. So if you're looking for 2017 all over again, you're going to have to keep looking because right now we're going through this winnowing period of cryptocurrency. And, so a lot of what we do on these calls is people write in with their favorite tribal coin. And, you can quite honestly look at the answer to what we're going to say if you just look at the price chart on the weekly chart. So, I mean, that's pretty much what we've seen lately.
Yeah,
What
would you say last week that only Bitcoin is in a bull market and everybody else is still in a bear?
there's a couple of coins that are in a primary bull right now, but quite honestly, Bitcoin is the only one that's worth really watching right now. Oh, who would we got? We got Thrillsville. We've got Tampa, Florida. How we doing out there? We got Baltimore. Let's see. Who else we got? Spain. La España. Good to see you guys coming in from all over the place. Outstanding. So, let's see. You got anything you want to share with folks before I get to the charts?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Yeah, normally we ask where people are from, but yeah, is there any piece of news or thing that has gotten you really excited in the past couple of weeks? For me, I've been going crazy lately with like just we had the Fed rate cuts and the yuan devaluation, and like this is so interesting in terms of I don't know if we know what the implications of all this like global sort of like central bank wars almost that's going on right now. So yeah, for me, it's super interesting to see sort of the macroeconomic perspectives of things, but it's also probably good to like go back into the micro and spend some time there too. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's time to dump your altcoins for Bitcoin, but for right now, guys, it's Bitcoin's market. So to me, that Bitcoin is the one capturing the narrative. It's the one that people are paying attention to. It's got the market dominance. It's got all the indicators in the right way to do some really interesting things right now. So as we start to see it right in line, basically with gold right now, that to me is the most interesting thing that's going on right now. Especially if you abstract away sort of if you were to price one Bitcoin at the same price as what gold goes for right now, it'd be about $1 million. So imagine sort of the like what does that mean? What do we get to by having something like that? Or I don't want to make price predictions, but I think we do need to think seriously about what does a world look like when 1% of transactions are done by Bitcoin or something like that, or as we start to build out layer two solutions, what does that look like? And yeah, I kind of reject this notion that we're just going we got to get to that goalpost or we got to get to that price target or things like that. It's lockstep. Like we have to be just looking 5 steps ahead, or otherwise that's what you have to do in a space like this.
What we have seen over the last 2 weeks is a tremendous amount of uncertainty come to global markets. And when there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty come to global markets, what's going to be the answer to that? Is it going to be some obscure altcoin, or is it going to be something where you can put some kind of hedge or store of value in it? and that's why Bitcoin has done so well. So
Yeah.
a couple of things that have come along. First of all, of course, the U.S. Fed came along and said, actually, the ECB was before that. The ECB said, "Hey, we'll do whatever we have to do," and which is a little bit disappointing. And the Fed came along a couple of days later, and Jerome Powell said, "Yeah, we'll give you a quarter point rate hike, but we're not going to do anything else." Well, the bond market in the United States is basically calling bullshit on Jerome Powell because right now, if you look at the Fed funds futures, there is 100% chance of a rate cut into the end of this year. And also, we see the 10-year note on bond yields just absolutely diving right now. So right now, the bond market is basically saying, Powell, we don't believe you. And so again, that's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. And so whenever there's uncertainty, people are going to hedge off the risk through things like gold and silver and, oh, by the way, Bitcoin. So that was one. And then, of course, the reaction to the Chinese situation, that's a massive uncertainty. If they manipulate their currency, you could do whatever they want to with it. Again, where are you going to put things into a store of value with a diminishing supply? There you go, Bitcoin.
And to me, that is like the most interesting, and I hope thing I can stress the most is that, like when we talk about something, I gotta put my hands away because otherwise I'm gonna use them too much.
I'll do it for you. I'll be like your sign language interpreter on the other side. Oh.
Yeah, I think what is often lost in the conversation, especially when people throw out softball price predictions or targets or things like that, is that, or if we look at things like I just said, $1 million per Bitcoin and what that means, or what are the implications of that. I think we also have to look at it as more than a store of value, because Bitcoin may have this moniker of being digital gold, but it's also, it's got utility. You can build on it. You can do things with it that you just can't do with gold. And again, I don't even think that we should necessarily just look at Bitcoin or sort of the small, piece that it represents. I think it's part of a much larger move of this is the first steps towards the new digital economy. And, if we start to look at the implications of what does AI and blockchain and IoT and all these things coming together, and utilizing things like blockchain, utilizing the different things that are going on with energy storage progress. I don't know, there's so many different ways that this can shake out, and different ways that we can see the future starting to coalesce around these very important emerging technologies, that just to look at it, to define it by its price or market cap, I think just does not do it justice in terms of what it's doing. So if people want to know what Bitcoin's next move is, I think over the past month, we've had a monumental glacial shift in terms of the narrative around what does an alternative asset class like Bitcoin represent. I think these past weeks have just been tremendous in terms of our ability to present ourselves as something akin to safe harbor, or just to have a disinflationary utility-based asset is something that just we don't have the conventions for, but we're slowly waking up the larger economy to, because as the global economy is being more and more defined by, let's just print money, let's negative interest rates and push people towards riskier and riskier assets. People are going to be looking for alternative stores of value that aren't defined by the conventions of central bank policy. So that to me is right there. Everything you need to know about the future of Bitcoin in this space is that we present an alternative. We present a future that is not defined by the whims of bankers and these trade wars and things of that sort. We look to build something better.
I have a different perspective on things. Not that I disagree with you about it, but there's a lot of hot air in this space that comes about from people trying to predict the future, right?
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of you guys tune in, because you want to listen to pundits, or you want to listen to people that are in the space that may know what they're doing. and you want to know what's going to happen in the future. And everybody does. I mean, this is part of stock TV. That's why people watch stock TV, things like that. Well, what I learned a long time ago, because I came through the school of trying to find the needle in the haystack, right? And what I found is that the price charts never lie about what's going on. Everything that is known about a certain asset is already priced into the chart to the second right now. Markets are very, very efficient. I mean, they didn't used to be. It used to take weeks for all the information to get packed into the price discovery for an asset. No longer. It's basically seconds. We have a 24-hour market now. So if something happens, if a moth sneezes on the other side of the planet, everybody knows about it within seconds. So everything is efficient, everything is priced in. And right now, I don't really ascribe to all the tribalism. I don't really fall in with the different religious camps that, I mean, you've got the maximalists on one side, you've got all the altcoiners on the other side, and everybody's got their own little tribe and everything. I really don't care about that stuff. I really don't care about what people think is going to happen in the future, because to me, everything is in the price right now, today. So if you want a view of the future, look at the price charts and let them tell you what's actually happening.
Someone's calling you out and saying to explain it with TA. So maybe that's a good segue.
Well, we could do that. Moi, technical analysis. All right. Well, let's see if I can switch over to a different screen here. We'll go off camera. Camera left here. Hopefully we don't mess this up. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, so yeah, Mav, you're off camera, so you can don't make any faces or anything. Woo. So what I have here is a chart of Bitcoin on the daily chart, and what we're seeing here is that, well, actually, let me back up here for a second. Let's go to the weekly chart. If you look at the weekly chart is showing a lovely trend. So we see a series of higher highs and higher lows. Now, we did get into exhaustion this spring on the weekly chart. And so I've been wondering, okay, when's this thing going to take a break? Because range expansion leads to range contraction. And that's exactly what we have. And look at this. What we have on the weekly chart now is a chart that is not supercharged, but is fully charged up and ready to go. So if this thing wants to take off at this point, I'm not going to fight it. Right? So now we go down to the daily chart and we say, okay, what's happening at this child time frame? Well, it's into exhaustion. All right. So a move is not going to go forever. Like this is what I'm looking at down here. This is the CHOP index. Range expansion will lead to range contraction. What I want to see from this is I want to see something where we can just chop around in this little area here and consolidate and allow this thing to build up energy again. So this yellow line gets back up into this area again, and then we're going to be ready to go for round two. So a lot of you are going to be saying, how on earth can I get on board with this? How can I get the next leg of it? So maybe you missed out on the breakouts down here, or maybe even this one here. And maybe you're still sitting there with nothing in your account and you're wondering how to get into something like that. Well, this is where the class that we released last week, the options, income with crypto options, is very, very useful, because actually finding out where exactly that thing is going to come down to support, nobody knows that. But what if you were to say something like, hey, I'll buy it if I can get this at 9,000, I will commit to buying it. So you can actually sell what's called a sell a put option. It's a cash secured put option. So let me bring along the Deribit chain over here. And this is what we're going to be looking at. Is we would look to sell something like this out of the money. We would look to sell this put out of the money. So maybe down here at 10,000 or so, right? So we can actually get paid to commit to buying at a pullback if the price comes down to that area. So this is where we don't have to be right. And this is what I love about selling options. So if you're curious about that, we'll have a little bit of information at the end of today's show. If you missed last week's presentation, on how you can get involved in something like that. Okay, let's look across the board. Like if we're looking at Ethereum, if we're looking at Ripple, if we're looking at Bitcoin Cash, even Litecoin, nothing is lighting up the screen. There's very few, a little bit of Binance Coin, and we have a little bit of, let's see, where have I buried Monero? Monero is actually looking pretty nice right now. So these are really the only three coins that I'm seeing right now that are showing positive progress in today's market. And everything else, as you can see, is just red, 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 or across the board. So don't fight the price. Don't disbelieve what's showing on the price. Don't blame the price movement on somebody else. Let's go back to us two. There, you're live again, Mav. So behave yourself.
All right.
So that's technical analysis these days is really easy because you just have to believe in what the price chart is showing you.
So, Doc, is this option stuff? Is it kind of risky? Is it kind of like futures where like you go over to BitMEX and you do your 100 times leverage and then you get blown up and then you cry on Twitter? Is it kind of like that, or does it kind of how does it deal with risk?
Well, dealing with risk. Okay, so there's two sides to risk. So one side of options is where you're getting rid of risk. So this would be an example of where you're buying an insurance policy because you don't, in case your house burns down or in case your car crashes or something like that, you want replacement for that asset. So buying insurance is a good example where you're actually buying puts. Now, if you flip that equation around, what do you guys think about when you think about an insurance company? Is that a good business or a bad business? Most people, I think, would say that running an insurance company is a very solid, safe, and yet even boring business. But this is what you can do when you sell options. Now, a lot of people get scared by, whoa, what do you mean selling options? What you have to do is you can sell options, and as soon as you sell that option, you collect cash into your account. You can actually collect those monthly premiums. And like I said, you can get paid for the pullback. You can get, whether the price goes up, down, or sideways, you'll still get paid on that. But it's up to you to manage your risk, just like any insurance company would. So a lot of insurance companies have reinsurance on the back end, but they're phenomenal at understanding their risk behind the move. And this is what we teach in the class is like, I don't want people just out there selling completely naked options without having a sense of what they're securing it with and what their exits are. That's the key. You got to run this like a business if you want consistent income.
You guys need to calm down in the comment section. We're getting some. So there was a question about the recent yuan devaluing by China, and I think this is a great example of where Bitcoin and the larger digital asset space are kind of moving towards, and the value that we can inherently give to the outside world. Because we often look at ourselves and say, oh, we're going to get adoption because we've got cool stuff like dApps and crypto kitties, and we're building all these really cool things. But where we're probably going to find the first real layers of adoption or usage or just larger acceptance is as we basically are a hedge against a lot of what's going on right now in the sort of macroeconomic global policies. So right in lockstep, U.S.-China trade war, they're basically devaluing their currencies, they're printing money. This is not just them; it's every central bank on the planet right now is printing money, and some are even in negative interest rate territory, which is very scary to me, or very uncertain, because that's sort of where do you go from there? You can only push people at that point into riskier and riskier assets.
Can you imagine that being charged money by your bank to keep
right.
money in there? Because when they're so desperate to get financial velocity for dollars that they'll charge you negative interest rate for that. That's where we've already seen that in some countries over the last few years.
Yeah. So, I think it's an uncertain future, but I think what's also the point I kind of tried to make with the video today is that it's it's just as much an opportunity as it is a challenge. And I think our normal conventions of boom and bust are going to be redefined. And where we will find value in that is by investing in the future. So I don't know if I'm exactly Anthony Pompliano levels and, advocating going 50% into Bitcoin as your total net worth. I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I do agree with the notion that you have to be diversifying into future based assets. Unfortunately, you know, common stores of value are, unless they provide some sort of hedge against what central bank policy is quickly becoming, the monster that it's quickly becoming. Yeah, unless they provide some sort of hedge against that, they will be in the crosshairs of this just incessant inflation race to the bottom. So that's where I hope that you guys kind of understand that this is where the space is evolving to. It's really like, this is very exciting. It's also very confusing and uncertain, and I get that. But it's not just about, we can't just define this by, oh yeah, we're going to go to Bitcoin to 50,000. Deutsche Bank is going to go under, and then like ABC. Like that. No, it's going to be much more nuanced than that. It's not going to happen overnight. I think that's the other thing that I have the sneaking suspicion of, is that this is something that's going to take a long time to matriculate. But it's important that we are staying ahead of the, I guess, investing herd, or just the overall. We have to continue to play our role as sort of the hedge against what's going on right now. And I think
we're even doing that within what we're doing, because we're playing the hedge within the hedge, because a lot of people to this point have hedged with other coins, right? So the traditional hedge over the years has been to diversify your portfolio.
Yes.
So what happens if all of a sudden, instead of trying to find the needle in the haystack, you have to trade the whole haystack, right? So there's only just a couple of assets that are actually moving forward on that. So all of a sudden you have to flip and go completely the other way. However, think about this for a second. What if you could diversify everything you did based on one coin? But it's the manner in which you diversify through that one coin. So in other words, I've been doing this on the S&P 500 in the equities market for years, where I create what's called an income pyramid. So I will do different strategies depending on how aggressive I want to be on the one chart. So for those of you that are Omnia members, this is something that I talk about all the time, is like finding your one thing, because I think that most people don't give it enough time to really figure out what their one thing is. And so consequently, they never really get good at anything. They just kind of bounce from one place to another and hope that they land on go, right? So what you have to do is, and this is actually great for this, because you can pick one chart and say, okay, I'd like to set up a strategy where I can make money regardless of whether it goes up, down, or sideways. Okay, that's great. Now, secondarily, I can diversify by saying I'm going to hodl. So every 4 weeks, I'm just going to put a portion of my paycheck in and just hodl on that and just accumulate. And then you could do things like you can sell calls against it, sell puts against it, right? You can get directional. You can actually go into futures contracts if you want to get hyper directional and leveraged on this. There's actually so many things that you can do now just with one chart. So to me, this is like phenomenal. This is what I've been waiting for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it's funny to me. I mean, not to call you guys out or anything like that, but there's a pretty fervent discussion or argument, I guess, in the comments right now, like about Charles Hoskinson and XRP, and like, these are you're beating the dead horse at this point. Like, what do you gain if you're correct or incorrect on that? I don't think very much. I'd much rather be interested in, like Doc was saying, playing the overall market and, basically selling insurance on that, because you're not going to be able to adequately predict the future. No one can. But what you can do is eliminate risk.
So that's your choice. You can either do one of things. You can trade the market instead of hoping for a different market than you have today. You can trade the market that you have, right, instead of the one that you want. And then you can trade that market in any number of different ways that you want to. and only one chart. So, right. So, I mean, that's your choice. You can either fall into the tribalistic camp and yell as loud as you possibly can on every social media channel that you possibly can, thinking that the louder that you yell, the further your coin is going to pump. And maybe that was the case back in 2017. Maybe that's the case with pump and dump groups and things like that. I don't believe in that stuff, right? Pick something fundamentally strong and fundamentally good. And just, that's the thing, is in financial markets, you only have to be good at one thing to be able to make money. You don't have to be a jack of all trades. By doing so, you end up being a master of none. So pick one thing, get really, really good at it. And today, it's Bitcoin. It may be
Yeah.
something different down the road, but those skills will translate.
Yeah. 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 To me, risk management is what defines a professional trader versus, someone who does this as a hobby or, you know, I don't know. That to me is the critical skill to sort of advance, because without that, you're just throwing darts at the board, and you're going to constantly be disappointed. And sometimes you might be right. Sometimes you might come away with a win, and we do a nice job of patting ourselves in the back. Certainly, there's a lot of that going on in 2017. But do you really feel like you were ahead of the curve, or you adequately predicted the future when 2 years later 90% of those projects have failed? I don't know.
I mean, it's all about exits, right?
Right.
It's all about exits. So yeah, those things were going like crazy, but it's all about how you manage a position. It's all about risk management. Everything comes down to risk management.
Yeah.
If you don't learn risk management now, you eventually will, or you're going to be, opening up an Amazon store or something like that. I mean, that's what you have to do if you want to stay in this business. Is you got to learn risk management, because capital is key. Without capital, you got nothing.
Uh, wow. This is good though.
We got
I think
we got a salty crew in here today, don't we?
yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Well, it's a tough market. It's tough being innovators. It's tough trying to be first and trying to see the future before it happens. Yeah, I don't know. It's a challenge, but to me, it's just as much of an opportunity. This is like we're we're standing on the precipice of some massive, like really cool things, and it's not going to be an easy transition. It's actually going to be one of the hardest transitions I think our species has ever gone through. This work towards an automated economy and a lot of the sort of moving out of the conventions that have defined basically since we've invented money. Yeah, this is going to be something that is not going to be happen overnight. It's not going to be really easy or clean, but the like where we can go from here, I think that's the exciting part. That's what I like drives me every day, is thinking about the future that sort of imbues a lot of these tenets that we feel very strongly in the blockchain space. And having just our society be more defined by that, I think that's what we can all feel, is that this needs to happen, and to help them make that happen, I think we could all feel that. So hopefully we can start to channel that sort of tribalism, not inward but like outward. And that's what I hope to inspire people to do. But if nothing else, like just being part of this space, I think you are planting a flag in terms of like, yes, this is what the future needs to embody, and this is who we are. This is like what what should define us. And yeah, I'm glad that's even throughout these past 10 years, it's definitely been the central piece of what we do. And yeah, we disagree on sort of the overall implementation of it sometimes, but I think we all inherently have some sort of notion towards that. So yeah, I think just over these past couple of weeks, it's just really been reaffirmed for me in terms of like, yeah, we need to do this. The world needs Bitcoin, and well, not just Bitcoin, but like the entirety of distributed ledger technology, and just a lot of these key pieces of what drives the space. I think that's what we're trying to proselytize the larger population, I guess. So Anyways, I'll
Hey,
get off my.
and we're going to be doing that in what, about a month from now?
Yeah, yeah, we,
Out
we got
out
some cool stuff.
out in Bali. Do you have any links that you can share with people?
What is it? Is it crypto? Oh man, you've caught me unprepared.
I know I was supposed to write this down, and now can you do it? Because I'm afraid that if I do it, it's going to fire off. So go ahead and do a search on that, and then you can do a share as soon as you find it.
All
And
right.
meanwhile, I'll fend off some of the comments here in the. Let's see if there's any questions here while Mav looks that up. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's the Altcoin Mastermind event. So we're actually going out to Indonesia and Bali at the beginning of September.
Yeah.
The Altcoin Magazine Mastermind event, and this is a business to business
Yeah.
meeting. So this is unfortunately, if you're just some bloke from Australia, they're not going to let you show up. But I'm sure you could crash the party and nobody would care. But just bring the beer.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah, just bring the beer. But yeah, what's the link for them to find out more on that?
Man, I always screw this up. It's mastermind.capital.
Mastermind.capital. Okay.
Right. We're not doing this to like shill a certain thing or like you guys know we're not about that. What we're about is progressing the space forward. And what this event represents to us is, this is B2B, like a very close-knit sort of event. And like, look, probably 99% of the people I'm talking to right now aren't going to go to this, and that's okay. But to know that like that's our intention, is to push things like this, because I've gone to a ton of these events, the crypto conferences and things like that, and it's nice. There's a lot of handshaking. There's you got your booths, and okay, you might have like a branded Lambo or something like that. But what does that actually do for the space? What does it actually do in terms of like sort of fostering the innovation ethos that we all know that we need to drive this space? Because there's a lot of problems to solve. There's a lot of things that we need to collectively build and test and iterate on, and it just doesn't happen in my experience at these sort of huge conferences. Unfortunately, you get some like backdoor deals, and that's cool. But for me, it's much more about trying to foster this sort of like just we got to push the space forward. That's what drives me. So I'm getting on my soapbox again. But yeah, so we're going to be there. I'm also trying to see if I'll also be going to the Asia consensus in Singapore, which is a couple days after that. So I'm going to make a little trip out of it. But yeah, I know I'm really excited.
What is that other exchange you were talking about that is
BXB? I don't know. I haven't confirmed anything, but yeah, like that they're doing crypto options as well. So that's what has me interested. But yeah, I don't know. What I'm trying to do is just make sure that what we're bringing to you guys is like the best of the best. And so we've never accepted ICO money. We've never accepted project money. That's not what defines us. We're about providing real information, education, analysis that is not defined by you can't pay for our opinions. Basically, that's what I'm like really proud of that. So that's why we built a community around education. That's what our Omnia group is all about. Is just having like a really impartial group of really intelligent people that come together to try to like help each other out, but also like push each other forward, and all under the guise of honesty, education, and trust. Because to me, that's everything. You can't buy trust. You have to earn it, and respect too. Like that, it comes from hard work, and it comes from like constantly, repeatedly, just proving that every day. And so, you guys watching this, like that to me is the greatest honor and privilege I could ever ask for, because you're placing your trust in me, and like that's awesome. Like that, we need more of that in the space. There's so much. It's funny to me, like this space that's defined by a trustless technology is inherently very trustless, because you can't really trust somebody to not have been paid off or things like that. It's it's really bad. Like I'm glad we're moving away from that, but it's very slow. And so that's what I want to do. That's what I've tried to use this platform to do is say there's a better way. Like this space deserves better. And like that was my goal when I started the channel. Still is my goal today. Is to push the space forward. So we want to bring you really cool stuff like our options course. We want to show you really cool events like the mastermind group. And if you don't join either of them, cool. It's okay. Like we're all here together just to collectively grow and to collectively understand where things are going. So I don't know, my hands are coming out, which means that I need to chill out.
All right, I'm going to grab the screen here for a second. I got some questions coming up. So first of all, let's see. The youngster, I don't know if that's the full username, is asking for a little bit of TA on Decred. So this is Decred versus the US dollar. And I don't want to show Decred versus Bitcoin. So that's a problem right now because Decred versus Bitcoin is still doing this like everything else. Right now, this is just a massive consolidation pattern. So if I were to go out to the monthly chart for this one, and I don't even have it listed here, let's go out to the monthly chart, but this is building up a tremendous amount of energy. Let's go to the weekly chart. The weekly chart is showing, again, this is almost like a bow flag setting up here with a ton of energy. Like what I would look for is a break above 40, and then that should get this thing going on its next run. Right now it's in range contraction. So you can either accumulate down here and look for the break, or you can wait on the break itself for that. So some other questions that came in were, what is the year-end target for Bitcoin? Well, I don't really play that game because predicting the future, I think, is a misuse of technical analysis. It gets people a lot of press. It gets people a lot of attention and things like that when they say, hey, I think the price is going to go up to X or Y or Z or something like that. I think it's just a game, right? Because nobody knows the future. The question is, what will you do if the price breaks out above 14,000? What will you do? What will you do if the price breaks out above 20,000? What are you going to do today? What is the next entry that you will look for Bitcoin? Is it going to be, if you're trading the spot currency, so I'll just go back to the cameras here. If you're trading the spot currency, how are you going to get on board the next train here? How are you going to get on board? Are you going to take a breakout? Are you going to look for the next pullback? Have you written those down? Do you know what you're going to do? Or are you going to let people on Twitter basically harass you into entering? And we all know how that's going to turn out. What happens if the price jumps above 14,000? What are you going to do? You're going to panic buy? You're going to FOMO into that? Now's the time where you might want to just write down. So instead of this whole notion of like, hey, predict the future for me so I know what to do. Well, who the hell am I to say what's going to happen in the future? But what you can do is write down what you will do. That is really the purpose of TA, is being able to overcome this herd effect that we have, like wanting to trade along with the crowd, because that does not work, my friend. That does not work. There was something else that came up, and who was it? Macaulay caught me on a technicality here. Deribit is actually cash settled. So even if I do want to buy Bitcoin, I will be cash settled if it's out of the money. However, when you sell puts, that brings in the currency du jour, which in this case is Bitcoin. So when you sell a put, you're bringing in Bitcoin. So that's one way that you accumulate more. By selling the put, you bring it straight in. And then you can manage the position. If you don't want to take assignment and take the cash settlement, you can roll it down. There's all kinds of things that you can trade against there to be able to manage your risk. Let's see if anything else is coming up. Your turn, Mav.
Yeah, no, a lot of good comments, guys. I really appreciate the discussion. A lot of life plans for when Bitcoin hits certain targets, which is, I guess you have to have that.
So let's see what John's asking. Is it going to be higher than now? Well, what we have to look at is what is the trend? What is the trend on the monthly, weekly, daily charts? And I go through 4 rules of my fractal energy trading program, right? So find that video, which is the 4 major rules, and that tells you pretty much what you have to know. Rule number 1 is that larger time frames dominate the trend. So it's like a freight train, right? A larger time frame, like a weekly or a monthly chart, is like this powerful diesel engine that just keeps chugging and chugging and chugging. And you're not going to see it reverse just on a daily pullback, right? So a weekly trend is going to have a hell of a lot more power than a daily trend. It's going to have 7 times more power than that. So they typically don't reverse very well. Once they get going, they tend to persist until rule number 2 comes along, is that reversals start from the inside out and then they propagate higher. So smaller time frames will start the reversal if one is going to happen. And then one by one by one, it propagates to those larger time frames. So we can watch the whole thing happen in slow motion if that's going to occur. Or just like what we've seen is we saw consolidation power into another daily trend up to the upside. So if you want to know how to decode charts, get the Fractal Energy program. It's out there. It's not about predicting the future. It's about understanding what the price is doing. There's a huge amount of difference between the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's yeah, you'll see the Bart Simpson pattern pretty often. I don't know if that's necessarily indicative of price manipulation, but so it's a good comic.
Every single financial market is manipulated by those that have the means to do so. There is not one financial market that is not. If a financial market is out there is not manipulated, that means there's nobody on it. That means there's no liquidity whatsoever. So manipulation by those that have the means to do so will always take effect, will always occur. Let's not fight it. It's like complaining that you're a remora and that these sharks are out there and, just latch onto a shark and just play the game that way.
Yeah, I just read this book last week called Built to Sell, which is about building a business that is sellable. It's really good. It's kind of like told in like a story format, and one of the lessons in it is like, before the guy goes down the path or whatever to like selling his business or whatever, his mentor says, like, write down a number and like put it in a box and then like put it away, and like the number that you would sell your business for. And I would think that same sort of logic sort of applies to something as speculative and like emotionally based as something like Bitcoin. Put your number down, understand where it is you would sell that would get you to your number for retirement or to pay off your house or whatever. Like if you're going to be in this seriously, first off, you have to lower your expectations, because this is a very like risk-based speculative investment, and there's no guarantee that anything will work out. Like I was just telling you guys a couple of weeks ago, like the Litecoin happening is coming up. It's going to pump and then it's going to dump, and it didn't really pump, but it definitely dumped. Like it's currently puking the most in the top 10. But like that's the thing is, everything is based on emotions. Markets are very emotional, especially this one. So just understand that you as a human are flawed and defined by emotions, and try to eliminate some of that risk by eliminating some of those emotions.
Hey guys, well, the questions are coming in. I just wanted to share this with you just for 2 seconds. Over here is that while we have everything on sale for the next couple of days, if you're interested in trading options, we have the class, which is out there. If you want to buy it one time, $149. And guess what? You can use this with, if you learn this on the crypto markets, you can also use this with the equity markets and the futures markets and commodities, whatever you want to do. Right? So $149 one time, learn how to sell options, learn how to become an insurance company. Or you can join us for Omnia, which is, we have a 3-month deal, which you can get a blended rate of 66 per month. So that's $199 for 3 months. And if you go to this site up here, which is readysetcrypto.com, options-sale, and there you go. All right. So that's it. And there's BTC USD. There we go. And that's 2-minute chart. So we're doing well on the 2-minute chart. Again, here's the weekly chart. That's looking really good. I like what I'm seeing here. Let's go back to the cameras and we're going to wrap it up here. See if there's any other questions for you guys.
Yeah, I do use a little bit of Doc and I both do a little bit of audio engineering. So yeah, we're using these preamps and like compressors and things like that. So it's not exactly like, no, I'm not going to do it because it's going to be yeah, there is some little tweaking of the audio, but my voice is definitely naturally deep. So I'm not just pitch shifting that this is your brain on blockchain. Like yeah, like it is pretty deep.
Yeah, he's using a harmonizer.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Bitcoin Diamond. Okay.
Oh man.
Yo guys, how you doing? All right, so I think we've come to the end of today's session. So I wanted to thank you guys for hanging out with us today. It's always a pleasure and an honor to meet with you guys. And we will see you at this time next week. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We'll see you soon.
See you guys. Cheers.